external world for its own profit. The integral personality does not wish that, or does not necessarily wish that. Collectivism is evil because the human personality is not, in Berdayev's mind, the product of society. It is the product of spirit, and spirit usually is in revolt from society. And democracy is equally evil because it is based on the idea that freedom, political, social, economic freedom, is not based on political mechanisms. Political mechanisms may, under very tightly controlled circumstances, manifest freedom, but it is never the creator of human freedom. Society as such is always problematic because it is a collective based on circumstances. It's a collective based on the convenience of those who dominate and control it. Ultimately, for Berdayev, community, which is an abused and misunderstood word, is an inner relation among equally integral personalities. It is never the product of external relationships. External relationships are always based on organization and compulsion. Real relationships can never be based on organization and compulsion. They must be based on free devotion and friendship. In Aristotle's sense of the word, the friendship among like, equal souls, integral personalities, not egos, but integral personalities for the sake of some common good. And of course, that's precisely the opposite that we have to suffer with in the 21st century. That is a thumbnail sketch of the existential and anarchist philosophy of Berdayev that is based on the soul, that is based on the spirit, and that is based on the idea of an integral personality. What do we mean by the concept of integrity? It means that the personality is based on a single idea. An idea that has been adopted in freedom, not in organization or compulsion or bureaucracy, but where every aspect of the personality reinforces every other aspect, and nothing is outside of that singular idea, but that is very rare anymore. And it's very rare because of the domination of organization and bureaucracy. So that is the 20th century Russian existential reaction to modernity, to the social sciences, to the scientific establishment, and to materialism. When we come back from the break, we're going to deal with an earlier criticism of a lot of these same things, but done from a slightly different point of view, and we're going to talk about Dostoevsky's reaction to the rise of the middle class, or, put differently, the rise of the European bourgeoisie in both Eastern and Western Europe in the middle second half of the 20th century. So hang in there. We will be right back.
Don't go away, because there's more to come on the Orthodox Nationalist. You're listening to the Voice of Reason Broadcast Network. Visit us at reasonradionetwork.com.
Britain says it's ready to help debt-hit Ireland with billions of pounds of direct loans. At a meeting of European finance ministers, Chancellor George Osborne says it's in Britain's interest to support their closest neighbour. The meeting comes amid fresh market turmoil and fears that some smaller economies like Portugal and Ireland are unable to service their massive debts. The EU president warned the Eurozone is actually facing a fight to survive. Ireland has so far rejected any help. Let's talk now about Europe's crisis with Frederick Eriksson. He's a director at the European Centre for International Political Economy, joining us there in Brussels. Thanks very much indeed for being with us here on RT. Now, Ireland's being pushed to accept a Greek-style bailout from the EU, or indeed to get help from the IMF, but Dublin says it doesn't want any help. Now we're reporting that Britain has offered support. Do you think that Ireland could accept support from Britain?
Well, I mean, we have to see how far other countries are going to take this, but it's quite clear that Britain, as well as other European countries right now, are trying to almost force upon Ireland some sort of an agreement that is going to extend their access to capital after in the second half of next year, when Ireland is going to run into liquidity problems if it can't roll over its debt. So we have to see if it's going to go that way. Ireland is saying right now that it doesn't need the money, and it's correct in the sense that it doesn't have a liquidity problem right now, but that's for now, and we're probably going to see a different picture going to emerge the sooner we get to 1st of July next year.
Well, we've seen this happening before with Greece, and now as we're talking about Ireland, do you think this could be a domino effect which may actually result in the ending of the euro itself, the collapse of the euro, as some suggest?
No, I don't think so. I think that's, vastly exaggerated fears about where this is going. I think there are problems in selected euro countries right now. It's not the sort of problem we are facing is not a problem of contagion or a domino effect where problems are going to cascade into countries and country after country. The problem right now for Ireland is basically that the government has taken on responsibilities and basically underwritten all the debts that its banks had taken on up to the crisis, and there are justified fears on the markets that the government actually can honor all sorts of debt has been taken on. I mean, the fiscal deficit has already skyrocketed, and we know that the problems in the Irish banking sector is far from over. The banks are undercapitalized, and the economy is still weak. Recovery is fragile, which means that unless there will be a significant pickup in the economy in the next year or so, we're going to find a government in the second half of next year which still has problems with undercapitalized.
Let's return to the Orthodox Nationalist, brought to you by the Voice of Reason Broadcast Network, reasonradionetwork.com.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Orthodox Nationalist. We spent the first part of the broadcast talking about Nikolai Berdayev and his criticism of the social sciences relative to the state, totalitarianism, to organization and technology. All of these things he holds is essentially the same thing from different points of view. But a similar view is held by Dostoevsky in the 1860s, and specifically in a book called The Winter Notes. But these ideas exist throughout the Dostoevskian corpus. And something central when you read Dostoevsky, anything by him, is the concept of freedom, and it's not laid out directly, explicitly, the way Berdayev lays it out. But there is the question of freedom relative to ego. Modern libertarianism seems to have this weird idea that freedom and egocentrism are one and the same thing. And of course, not only are they not, both Dostoevsky and Berdayev, not only are they not the same thing, but they're opposed to each other. And they're opposed to each other because egocentrism, this thrusting of the ego into the realm of all aspects of social life, that is completely consistent with the doctrine of materialism. It isn't freedom. The ego can be coerced and can be caused by the same thing that causes leaves to fall off in the fall, a simple scientific cause and effect matrix. But real freedom, of course, cannot be. Real freedom, by its very definition, can't be caused or coerced, and a cause is just a complete coercion relative to its effect. It can't be dominated by anything. That's what freedom is. So if you reject the idea of immateriality, that is to say, if you reject the idea of the spirit, you, by definition, ipso facto, you reject the idea of freedom, and there is simply no way out of that problem. But when Dostoevsky talks about the bourgeoisie, this particularly a modern manifestation, this bureaucratic, social scientific world